I don't like about driving in Washington is the traffic. It's unbelievable. You know, you grew up in a town of 280 people, you're not used to traffic anyway. I grew up never knowing a traffic jam. So is this your group?
Yes, this is.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, how are you?
Corey Ash from
Hi.
Texas.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
I can
you.
hear a little bit of that.
Funding for the production of Byron Dorgan in the halls of Congress is provided by a grant from Gate City Bank, offering a full range of financial products and services available at any of Gate City's 32 offices across the region. North Dakota Farmers Union, Lignite Energy Council, the Dakota Institute of the Lewis and Clark Fort Mandan Foundation, David and Ruth Borlaug, Hal and Kathy Gershman Family Foundation, Dr. Gerald H. Grunwald, Carol Jean Larson, and the members of Prairie Public.
Senator Dorgan's office. How can I help you?
Life here is very busy. There are so many people coming in from North Dakota. They all want to come and have a visit, which is very important, and I'm really pleased that we are able to do that. But you have to fit all of that into, in many cases, 15-minute segments between hearings and things on the floor and caucus meetings and speeches and television appearances and all the things that you do in a typical day. So it's a busy life, it is.
All right, are we ready?
Yeah.
I've helped manage the senator's day and his work, moving not only his calendar ahead and make sure everything gets fit in, and
How are you? Senator, it's good to see you. Good to see you.
and bringing to his attention things that need immediate attention, and sort of make the judgment about the things that we can hold off on and act on later. And of course then help the senator manage the staff and all the staffing needs. And it's busy and challenging, but very interesting.
Hello. Good morning. How are you?
And I'll just summarize his story. So Lech Wałęsa comes to Congress. He said, we didn't have any guns. The communist government had all the guns. We had no bullets. They had all the bullets.
It's my responsibility to try to put together his daily schedule and all that goes into it. So I'm organizing meetings, working lunches, juggling his hearings, speeches, breakfasts, looking at family schedule, just trying to balance it all, and then coordinate too his travel plans and make sure I've got him going where he needs to be. My coworker Sylvia helps manage his day of schedule, but I'm still pretty much involved since I'm the one who started the project. Sometimes people are still calling me, but you know, it's always a work in progress.
10 years later, he shows up as president of this country. That's leadership, isn't it? That's something. I mean, think of what it took to do that.
So you're scheduled to meet with Pam and Allison and Amber next. Allison's in South Dakota today.
Okay.
There are lots of changes. And then Brian mentioned that you wanted to reach Mark Patterson.
You have to start off just realizing that the whole day is going to change and you can't do anything about it.
Brian, come down.
All right.
First thing in the morning, we start off with a perfect schedule that Christy has worked very hard to put together. And just about as soon as the day starts, it starts to unravel.
What we want to do there, I'll be there for an hour and a half. And
Allison mentioned that she'd sent a letter to Assistant Secretary Echo Hawk about coming out to the reservation to visit about law enforcement issues. So that was one thought, but they also want to do a recognition event for your years of service.
And they
too.
have wanted you at the college as well.
Well, I'll call the chairman.
He's back and forth to the state, probably 30 to 35 weekends a year. So we are constantly working on the schedule for trips home as well.
8 o'clock dinner. Wyatt the Toasted Frog. Oh, I bet I know Wyatt. Sanders is not open on Sunday.
Yes.
Next morning, leave at 7:30 to Rugby.
what a lot of people I think miss and don't understand that in many cases these jobs are 7 days a week in long hours. And when I'm in North Dakota, I travel, you know, somewhere around 30 trips a year to North Dakota, back and forth, many of them weekends. And when I'm in North Dakota, I travel a lot because I'm trying to, you know, cover the whole state. And so there's a lot of, you know, in addition to the things you have seen here, there's a lot of travel. And the travel part gets a little bit old. Okay, we'll make sure I make those calls this afternoon.
We'll do that.
So there's a request in from Eric Hart with KZZY about Devil's Lake and the Spirit Lake.
We do see a slow but discernible progress.
I definitely want to thank you for, you know, FY9, FY10 were just outstanding.
There are committee hearings in the mornings, sometimes 2 or 3 at a time. So Christy starts planning the appointments at about 11 in the morning in 15-minute increments. And so appointments are scheduled from roughly 11 until 12:30 in 15-minute increments. And then usually there's a caucus meeting over the noon hour. And then at 2 o'clock we start up with hearings again. Christy tries to get a sense of how long those hearings will last. And then the afternoon we schedule appointments at the back end of the day, roughly from 3 o'clock on in 15-minute increments.
That allows North Dakota to have access to new water projects it needs without authorization because it's self-authorized in the program I wrote. So it's been a huge boon.
Kurt Tweak and Wes Martin.
All right, yeah, we've got you down. We'll let them know you're here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We work on a lot of things. I mean, right now today, I'm working on something that has nothing to do with North Dakota, but it has a tangential connection, the issue of Cuba. So some years ago, I got a bill passed, first time in 40 years, that allowed us to sell into Cuba. Our farmers, for the first time in 42 years, were able to sell dried peas from North Dakota into Cuba for cash. It's the first crack in that embargo with Cuba. Well, so now I'm working to, the New York Philharmonic wants to perform in Havana, Cuba. And they came to me and they're trying to get a license from the Treasury Department to allow them to travel. And the Treasury Department, you know, is being very bureaucratic, and so I met with the conductor of the Philharmonic, and so I've been on the phone today with Treasury, and I'm trying to get that resolved. And it's, you know, it's not like a farm problem in North Dakota or working with businesses as we often do, but you know, the New York Philharmonic is America's great symphony. They've performed in North Korea, they've performed in Russia. I think it'd be wonderful if they could perform in Havana, Cuba. So, you know, it's just one example of a little thing today I've been working on. But there are a dozen or 2 dozen exactly like that that you try to fit in between the crevices of all the other things you're doing.
Okay.
Senator Justin Field. Hey, Justin. Good. It's good to see you again.
Well, thank you so much for taking time with us today. I know you're awfully busy, but we're in town for our annual conference, as you know, in 88. And we just...
Byron always makes an effort to meet with anyone from North Dakota who requests an appointment of him. So actually, springtime is much busier than right now. Right now in the fall, most of the national organizations have had their members come out. So it's a little bit more manageable, but oftentimes getting the schedule to come together means layering appointments. We usually try to do them back to back in 15-minute blocks, but sometimes I overlap it a little bit. So he'll start one meeting in one conference room, somebody might go into his office, and then he'll try to jump in and go between them. So it's kind of a constant juggling act.
When North Dakotans come in town, they have priority. They always get a meeting. That's the priorities, meeting with North Dakotans. But we have so many other requests that we just can't accommodate. We put as many as we can in a day, always in 15-minute increments. And you know, you do as much as you can, but there are about 80% of the requests from around the country to come in for a meeting that we can't accommodate. But that never applies to North Dakotans because it's fun over the years to see all these North Dakotans. Many of them come in year after year on the same issues.
Well, good luck to you. Thank you again.
Hi, the 12 o'clock appointment is... Thank you. Bye.
Come on in. Have a seat.
Okay.
There is a staffer who's assigned to each meeting, which helps in instances where, you know, an organization may call Christy 3 months in advance and say, we're going to be in Washington, could we set up an appointment? And the committee hearing schedules aren't set up very far in advance. So Christy can set up a day beautifully, and then we get a committee hearing notice a week out saying, oh, by the way, we have these committee hearings that we need to work around. And Senator Dorgan reminds us in the staff meetings quite often that you know, someone's visit to Washington or phone call to Washington or letter to Washington may be the only encounter that they have with their member of Congress. And it may be the 8th appointment on his schedule for the day, but it may be the first time they've ever come here. And so we try to remember what that's like, and part of the reason that the staffer is assigned to a meeting is in instances where he's been called to the floor because of a vote, or a hearing is running late, and so the staffer will visit with the North Dakotan about the issue, and if at all possible, if Senator Dorgan is in an environment where I'm able to interrupt him, we communicate a lot by email, and I'll send him an email and say, your 11 o'clock appointment is here, Melissa's meeting with them now. They realize that you're chairing this hearing that's still going late. Do you have a sense of when it will wrap up? And he'll send me a note back, and if the North Dakotan has the time in their schedule, we walk them over to the committee hearing and stand in the back of the room, kind of let Senator Dorgan know that we're there, and then he will step out of a hearing in many instances to say hello to folks in the hallway.
Important enough that we'd like to encourage you to do what you can to get those handled, and that's what we're here lobbying for, is a regular appropriation bill, no question about that. So.
How long is staying there? In the Congress, we have the attention span of gnats. You know, 30 seconds here, 30 seconds there. And so there's when there's a vote and 100 senators are on the floor, it looks a little like one of those ant farms where just everybody's scurrying back and forth, doing a lot of business during a vote, talking to people about sponsorships, about issues. And so, I mean, there's a lot going on, obviously. The whole place is full of activity. I mean, I just took a call from the Treasury Department during the meeting with the auto dealers. Right now I'm working to get a license for the New York Philharmonic to play in Havana, Cuba. And I've talked to Hillary about it, I've talked to Tim Geithner about it. They're the ones that issue the license, and they've been, at this point, not willing to issue the license for the New York Philharmonic to go to Cuba. So anyway, there's a lot of things going on. I've been working this morning a little bit on that by talking to Treasury to tell them that I said if they don't get off the dime here and do what they should do, I may go to the floor and talk about it, which they won't like. But the New York Philharmonic is our, you know, great instrument of diplomacy in many ways. They've played in North Korea, they've played in Russia, and they want to, in February, they want to play in Havana, Cuba. So I've been working on that.
Good.
See if we can do that.
We get more room right here. We get 1, 2, 3 cars coming. We're going to first floor. First floor.
What about a witness list?
I do. Right here. Yeah, so I put in a separate
How many members do we have?
We have Congressman Levin is on his way. He's coming right now.
How many witnesses do we have?
We have 4. Here's
Do they all
Carl's.
speak good English?
Yes, they're all English speakers. They're native speakers.
Work on that. Today we're talking about will China protect intellectual property and new developments in counterfeiting, piracy, and forced technology transfer. I'm joined by my colleague Congressman Levin and Senator Feinstein.
And he's got I think, a really strong working relationship, especially those members who've been here a long time, and those from the other side of the aisle where they've worked collectively on important issues together. And you know, that, as you know, anytime you work with somebody on something, you just really establish a nice working relationship, and he has sustained that.
By consent, also asked that the full statement of Senator Carl Levin from the state of Michigan be included in the committee record at this point. Ms. Lee, you've had time to think about that now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's an excellent question. It's one that has been...
The responsibilities of a chairman is to set the agenda, you know, so that which issues will come before the committee and which won't. And that's really sometimes very tough. Of course, you have to approve the budget of the agencies that are under you and make sure they're functioning, but then the important thing is to set the agenda. And when this Abramoff issue came up, Byron and I set aside all the other issues and worked actually for a couple of years on the Abramoff issues. We uncovered a scandal that was really of enormous proportions, and obviously lasted up until just recently, when one of the last Abramoff, quote, defendants was convicted and will be sent to prison. We worked hard, we worked together, and we were subjected to pressures from various areas to not quite be so zealous, and Byron Dorgan never wavered, nor did he ever show the slightest degree of partisanship.
One of which is the issue of international trade.
You know, you may disagree with Byron Dorgan. We've certainly had our disagreements. He's a Democrat and I'm a Republican. But I never thought that Byron Dorgan, when he took up an issue, and he did with passion, ever came to the floor of the Senate with anything in mind other than what's the best thing for the people of this country and the people of North Dakota. And those were his only two motivations.
The impact, Americans out of work, American jobs shipped to China, misery from American manufacturing workers who used to have good jobs.
I was just over on the floor of the Senate for a vote, and I talked to Lindsey Graham from South Carolina on a water issue. We're friends. He's a Republican, I'm a Democrat. We vote differently on some things. But, you know, the person-to-person contact between senators on the floor is very cordial. I think it's fair to say most of us like each other, work with each other. It's not that. There's something else that has happened, and that's kind of the external view of politics and how it affects the voting and the strategies inside the Congress. The strategies to decide, we're going to block these things. We're not going to let things happen because we've got people that would be very angry and, you know, on news shows and others take us on. So what we're going to do is we're going to block things. And that's the kind of contentious thing that has happened in recent years. Instead of having two people who think differently sit down and say, let's compromise, and getting the best of what each party has to offer rather than the worst of both, instead of that, what's happening is gridlock at a time when the country can least afford it. This country needs some nurturing and some good decisions and some help to move forward and lift our economy up. And the fact is we have this gridlock, which is it's very disappointing.
One of the things we do as a delegation that I don't know of any other delegation doing is we present a coordinated request for appropriations. So we prioritize it, we agree on the entire list and the prioritization of that list, because in other states they all submit a separate list. And so then the appropriators tell them, oh, Senator A doesn't have that on his list, or he has a different priority on his list, therefore we're not going to fund it at all. In North Dakota, they're presented with a united front. And I think it's one reason we've been so successful and why North Dakota gets a disproportionate amount of federal assistance, which is very meaningful in a state like ours.
You know, whether it's Buffett or whether it's Cheryl.
That's nice to see you again. Thanks.
We try to set it up ahead of time, but Senator Dorgan may say, you can have those folks come in now, and then my phone rings and it's, you know, the chief of staff from the Treasury Department calling Senator Dorgan back. And so everything is really spontaneous, and it's very hard to follow a pattern for anything because everything changes every 60 seconds.
This is a national epidemic in this country. That's why this paycheck fairness is so important.
Well, you're not like any other woman. You have a piece of legislation named after you, a Supreme Court decision named for you, and it's taken a lot of courage and a lot of...
Is somebody over there with my charts and talking for
Yes. And Senator Reed is going to go down and offer a UC on food safety right about now in Cobra.
The question is whether the Cobell case could move along. I wonder if that's what they're asking.
I don't need to be at the hotel right now.
Senator Dorgan's pace is, I think, unduplicated by anybody I know. It's just really unique to Byron. He has always kept a pace that includes, you know, probably 2 to 3 times more than most normal people could. It's just his natural inclination is to try to fill the day as full as possible and really, you know, he's so productive minded. He can balance and manage multitask better than anybody I know. And so he does it with ease, and of course he's done it for so long that it's just inherent in who he is.
I love coming to work every day. Sometimes I go home and I am just exhausted. And I've talked to other staffers. I'm not alone in that because, you know, everybody around here is going at that rate. This is a physically demanding job and mentally demanding too to keep up with him. You go home worn out, you get up the next morning and you come right back.
I've always been a very fast walker, but you know, that also is good exercise, but it's just, that's my natural gait. I want to get from here to there in minimum time, and there is a lot of walking here because you're back and forth to a lot of meetings and back and forth to the Capitol building. And my staff always complains to me because I walk way too fast.
There's a lot of talk in politics and on the floor of the Congress, always about something called the American dream. People talk about the American dream, and I suppose we reflect on that.
Byron is the hardest working person that I know, the most productive person that I know. He turns out enormous quantities of very high quality work. It's very rare to find somebody of his quality and his character in this business.
This country will not long remain a world economic power unless you have world-class manufacturing capability. That's just a fact. And the question is, when will we stand up for this issue and decide that we have to do something about the export of American jobs? Paul Craig Roberts, someone I've met, he was a former Assistant Treasury Secretary under President Reagan. Here's what he said: outsourcing, he means outsourcing of jobs, is rapidly eroding American...
We have about 32 people, and that includes people who work for him on committee staffs. And then we have about 8 people who work in the North Dakota offices, so there are about 40 total. Office staffs are allocated to senators based on the state's population, so it varies from state to state. It's certainly standard for a state the size of North Dakota's population, but the California senators would have much larger staffs because they have millions of people as constituents.
It's today or never, so.
You know, the fact is, those of us in public service, in public life who are elected, we take all the bows to the extent that there are successes. But there are people who work for us if you select well, and I certainly have, I think, done that. I've got some just outstanding people that work for me and work with me, not so much for me. And they work long hours, weekends, travel. If people would know, they would be mightily impressed with these folks.
Okay. Thanks, Laurie.
When people reach out to our office and ask for his assistance in solving a problem, he takes that very personally and understands that it takes a lot for somebody to call a U.S. Senator or to call his office. People don't do that very easily. So the fact that they've taken that time, he wants to make sure he responds and does it promptly and generally with a great deal of success. I mean, he can maneuver his way through the bureaucratic red tape and get a solution to a Social Security problem, a veterans issue, you know, better than anybody I know.
And so we actually got to participate in the Distracted Driving Summit yesterday.
Hold on 1 second. Is he on the line? Okay, let me just talk to the ambassador. 1 second. Hello?
The votes come up, and then a lot of telephone calls pile up.
Hi, it's Senator Dorgan calling the ambassador.
You know, people will call, and you get 4, 5, 6, in some cases 10 telephone messages. I very often make a lot of telephone calls at 6 or 7 in the evening on the way back home after a workday.
We're in a situation where...
I like to use my phone, but the problem is I can't use it in the morning because it's, you know, in western North Dakota, when I'm driving in, it's, you know, 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning in eastern North Dakota. So I do a lot of telephone return calls in the evening when I'm driving home.
So is this your group?
Yes, this is.
Hi, how are you?
Hello. How are you? Corey Ash from
Hi.
Texas.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
I can
you.
hear a little bit of that.
He's remarkable at switching gears, and today he was meeting with North Dakotans and got a return phone call from the Chief of Staff at the Treasury Department on an issue that he feels very passionately about. And so brought a note in, and he excused himself and took the phone call and dealt with that, and then slipped right back into his meeting with the North Dakotans.
One more, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you.
Have a good dinner.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
In my office.
It's fine with them if you approve this.
Okay,
You know,
let's
and
call.
OFAC has gone back and said, oh, we need,
Let's call him tomorrow.
the state that we need somebody to change policy, and that's a White House issue.
Okay, let's call him tomorrow.
Okay.
6:15 right now, and the daily's been here since.
Okay, I called this person already.
Great. I'll let them know.
How are you? I'm Byron.
Nice to meet you.
I apologize, you've been sitting here and I've been over there and I'm supposed to go someplace soon. So, your friend of John Rose?
Friend of John's, yeah. I just wanted to say thank you for that speech on the floor. It was, my parents are small business people and they're trying to stay in business.
I think we're gonna vote Monday night or Tuesday.
It's been a long, I know you've been working.
What's that?
Massive volume of paperwork, and part of it is the ability to digest it all. Because during the day there's not very much time to pick something up and read it and think about it and evaluate it, and so most of that is for me late in the evening, and I take and most senators I think do take big batches of paper for the evening.
All right, see you guys. Off to dinner. See you later.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm Mary George, the editor of Washington Post Live, and few issues are as important to America and the world as energy.
Everything about a car has changed over these years, except you still have to put gas in the gas tank. So when I walked in this morning, I saw the boat sitting in front of this building, and I thought, things are probably going to change. The Dorgan-Alexander bill on Electric Vehicle Deployment Act is something that I hope still will.
Senator Dorgan's office. How can I help you?
If somebody calls our main line and they want to talk to Byron, sometimes we try to understand a little bit about their request, or if they have a problem, somebody in our state offices can help with their casework issues. But oftentimes Byron will field those phone calls. During the healthcare issue and so many people were calling in, Byron had a slow day and he actually stopped what he was doing and sat up front and started fielding phone calls. So I don't think anyone knew it was actually the senator on the line, and he would just listen to them and be like, okay, well, thank you for your concerns. I'll pass those along to the senator. So it was kind of fun for us to see him doing it, but it was also sort of like, oh my God, just follow your schedule, please.
Would it make more sense to try and do that in the Capitol?
Probably. This is we can do that in the reception room if we want, huh?
I don't know if that's an option.
Are you thinking of my hideaway office?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You can't go in here.
As the Clean Energy Development Act, CEDA, going back, Senator Bingaman and Senator Domenici, I think, have provided great leadership to this committee. I, as chairman of the Appropriations Subcommittee, have...
On the subcommittee, we did a lot of good work together in a short period of 4 to 6 years that we worked together. Once you're on the subcommittee together and spend 4, 5, 6 years in the Senate and you're on that with that relationship, the essentials for friendship and camaraderie and getting along are supplied by the situations of just having to meet for 2 hours today and whispering and talking. And the institution is not a club, like they say. Clubs usually mean you learn to know each other. You don't learn to know each other. The Senate, you work when you're in session, As soon as you are not in session, you get out of town. And literally, you either go overseas on a trip or go out to a war zone. And if you aren't doing that, you go campaign. If you're not campaigning, you go fundraising. So it's a devilish life. And you're fortunate to get subcommittee opportunity to become friends.
Available through on your days. But we also, in addition to being excited,
We have a great team, and it's interesting in that we all keep each other informed about where he is. And so if he's at an energy hearing, the energy staff will literally email me and say, Byron's arrived at the energy hearing. He's the second one up to ask questions. And so I'll tune my TV to the energy hearing and watch him ask his questions, and then I know he's supposed to be at Commerce next. And so I'll tune my TV to Commerce and email the Commerce staffer who's sitting at that hearing to say, Byron has just left Energy, he's on his way to Commerce, he should be there in 3 or 4 minutes. And then in the middle of all of that, we have 2 or 3 groups of North Dakotans who have come in between, and the more creative I can be with getting them connected with him, the happier he seems to be.
establishing a contractual.
They are continuing to work on it, and they delayed the release. Obviously, what happened is EPA put out its approval of the sulfate level above Bald Hill Dam. I mean, it's not insignificant that the EPA has ruled that
If North Dakota reporters call and want to talk to him, he talks to them. I talk to reporters from other states who find that hard to believe, because how often does a reporter from California, for example, or New York get to pick up the phone and call and talk to the senator directly to get their questions answered?
All right, well, thanks a lot, Eric. Good night. In just a minute, we're going to go over the Russell
I think Gary's gonna come to me.
TV show.
Okay.
All right.
And I'll meet you.
I need to talk to you about the hearing in Reno.
Yeah, I think we're gonna
I
be
talked
on
to
the.
Carrie about that.
Okay.
In fact, Carrie may come to the hearing.
Oh.
It's just 12 o'clock live on the hour?
On the hour.
So they want me there.
They asked to have me there 10 minutes early.
All right, let's go.
Told them that wasn't like 5 minutes was.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'll probably have to do it. Does she want a meeting or a telephone call?
I think a phone call would work.
Let's try this afternoon, we can find some
Yeah,
time, and if not, tomorrow morning.
All right.
Thanks. Well,
Yeah, Jonathan danced around the energy question very hard.
He had to, as you said.
Didn't have a choice.
He didn't have a choice, yeah, but it was, everybody did.
See you guys. Thanks. Yeah, how you doing? Good. Thanks for being there. That's my sorry I couldn't be there for the whole thing. I read your stuff.
Thank you.
Please keep pushing.
I know. We need your help.
Barry, who's the host on this? I did for one before, but I didn't see it.
All the time, it's hard to keep up with him. I mean, he's always thought 2 or 3 steps ahead of most of us. You've been walking in the halls with him today. You know that literally it's hard to keep up with him. He's a fast walker, and he's got more energy than 3 or 4 people do.
Reaction to the GOP pledge to America as we await a decision from Senate Democrats on whether they'll hold a vote on extending the Bush tax cuts. A lot going on in D.C. Will this happen before the November elections? Senator Byron Dorgan of North Dakota is chairman of the Democratic Policy Committee, and he's our guest today.
Represent a Congress that can answer the call the Americans want answered to try to put the country back on track. So let me just make the quick point. Even when you just extend the middle income tax cuts, all taxpayers, including those above the $250,000, will have their tax rate cut because their tax rates cut because you're adjusting the rates in the first 2 directions. What is extended? Is it all of it, or is it just the up to $250,000? I mean, I think those questions need to be answered, but they certainly will be answered before the
Well, we appreciate your sentiments today, Senator, and thank you for joining us, Senator Dorgan of North Dakota. We'll talk again soon. Lots to talk about in the coming weeks. Now, we have also been talking a lot today about
Thanks a lot. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Okay. Really hopeful we can make progress on that.
Meeting be here in DC or?
Yeah, we have it here. How are you? Good. That's your comment was interesting about the ports and girls.
Voting happens quite often without any notice, and we have 15 minutes to get them to the floor. We've got it down pat so that we know when there are 4 minutes left on the clock, he starts to run. But then again, sometimes there's a North Dakotan in the front office who might have a baby with them. He stops and says hello, and we start to get nervous and call the cloakroom and say, he's on his way, really, he's out the door.
Mr. Reed of Rhode Island, no. Mrs. Boxer, no. Mr. Brown of Massachusetts, aye. Mr. Warner, no. Mr. Dorgan, no.
Senate desks have great history, and in fact, when I was sworn in, I sat at a temporary desk, and I opened the drawer. You carve your name inside the desk. It's been that way for a couple hundred years. And I opened the drawer and saw Harry S. Truman. I thought, man, I mean, from a high school class of 9 in a small Regent, North Dakota high school, now I have a desk in the United States Senate, previously occupied by Harry Truman. That's a pretty big deal. And so then I got the permanent desk 2 weeks later that has been my desk, and I opened the drawer to see whose it was, and I saw all these names, and I saw Robert La Follette, the great populist senator from Wisconsin. And so I said to Senator Byrd, the oldest senator, the real historian, knows all the history, and now departed, of course, but I said, you know whose desk I've got? I've got Robert La Follette's desk, the great populist senator from Wisconsin. He said, oh, really? Do you know they tried to kill him at that desk? And I said, no. He said, absolutely. So I wrote to the Library of Congress. I said, do you have any information about somebody trying to kill Robert La Follette? And from what I could understand, the information I got back, May 29th, 1908, it's a little over a century ago, he was on his feet doing a filibuster, and he sent a page, which is a young student that works in the Senate, sent a page down to get a turkey sandwich and a glass of milk. And they brought it up. You have to stand on your feet during a filibuster. He'd been speaking 6 hours or so, and he took a little nibble of his turkey sandwich and then a sip of his milk and spit it out and started screaming he'd been poisoned. And because he didn't drink it, of course, he wasn't injured. But they sent it away to a laboratory, and they discovered that something was in there that would have done him in. So they never quite figured out how that happened or why it happened. So, but Senator Byrd really whetted my appetite for the history of Senate desks. And so I've often told high school groups the history of the Senate through the desks. Just across from my desk is the desk always occupied by a Mississippi senator. And in about 1860, Jefferson Davis stood up at that desk and gave the secession speech, and then walked out of the Senate chamber, and other Southern senators followed him, and we were at war. And he became president of the Confederacy, and a Union soldier came to the Senate about 3-4 months later, and after the Senate had adjourned, they were touring or something, and he asked, where was Jefferson Davis's desk? He was so angry. And they said it was right over there. And he walked over and he drew his bayonet, and he rammed his bayonet through this cherrywood desk. And if we could go there right now, I'd show you Senator Thad Cochran's desk with the little patch holes of the bayonet from 1860, a Union soldier. Or just behind me and down, about 4 desks, is Robert Kennedy's desk. But before Robert Kennedy sat there, John F. Kennedy sat there. And after Robert Kennedy sat there, Teddy Kennedy sat there. The Kennedy brothers' desk, 3 Kennedy brothers. And you know, there's such great history. And as you can tell, I love history and love the history of the Senate.
Now I blocked this up.
This room is used when we have meetings with North Dakotans. It's close to the floor, and it gives Senator Dorgan an opportunity to spend more time in the meeting versus going back and forth to the office. Senators were asked at the time of the inauguration if they would be able to loan their office space for use for dignitaries prior to the inauguration, and Senator Dorgan said, of course. So we knew that his space had been used, but we didn't know for whom. and we were looking in a magazine spread, I believe it was Time magazine, and came upon this photo of President Obama adjusting his tie in a mirror. And we looked in the reflection, and there were the pictures of North Dakota on the wall. And we realized it was his office, Senator Dorgan's office, that was used.
Hello. How are you? How are you? Hello.
Great to see you again.
Good to see you, Pam.
Hi, I'm Tamara Cameron.
How are you? Good to see you, Judy. How are you?
Hi. Good.
Sorry I'm delayed, but we've been in a caucus. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Give me a sense of the timing on Fargo-Moorhead flood control. I know that there's been a delay announced.
General Walsh spoke to you last week, and
that's right.
We've learned some information since he spoke with you about, we have identified that we can get the zero impacts downstream by doing some things with the diversion, the alignment.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. Coming along?
Absolutely. So this panel started at 2:15. They moved it like 4 times since your schedule was
So
set.
my part of the extension of the panel?
You will be in the last 15 minutes of the panel, basically.
I'm going to Washington Hilton to give a short speech on energy to a group at the Washington Hilton Hotel. And every time I find myself doing this, I wonder, why did I say yes to this? And then there are people like Jana who pushed me into saying yes. I guess you didn't, did you?
I think you say yes if you're on free will.
I try not to say yes to things that are like at the Washington Hilton because it's so far away from the hill.
Yes.
Once you're here on Capitol Hill, you can't be more than 15 or 20 minutes away from Capitol Hill unless you know the vote schedule, and often the vote schedule is not scheduled, so they can call votes anytime. I happen to know now there are not going to be votes during this period, but you're stuck within a very short period, and or a very short geography, I should say, from Capitol Hill. There are a lot of demands every day that you can't possibly meet, so you have to try to sort them all out and determine what you can do and what you can't do. And often it means that you've got a lot of North Dakotans come in on the schedule. They all want to come to the office and visit, which is great, and we try to make sure that happens, and then fit that in between committee hearings, debate on the floor, and a whole range of other issues. It's very hard to fit it all in. I've got some really terrific people that help me do scheduling, and then they manage the whole day. Most of the days have 15-minute increments on them, so it takes some really skilled people to manage all that. Everybody thinks, it's interesting how many people ask you if every senator has a limousine. I mean, it's not the case. It's not the case. The thing I don't like about driving in Washington is the traffic. It's unbelievable. You grew up in a town of 280 people, you're not used to traffic. I grew up never knowing a traffic jam, which is a terrific advantage. Hello? Hi, hon, how are you? Good, I just tried to call you a bit ago. I just got the pictures with you and the president from the White House. Oh man, you look beautiful. They're great pictures. They are great photographs. They couldn't be better. So, but congratulations. And yeah, love you too. See you. Yeah, bye. My daughter. As I move around sometimes, there's no place to park, and so Zach will take care of the car and then come in to be a part of what I'm doing. Okay, good.
And your name tag?
So what is that accent? Where are you from?
Honduras.
Honduras, I don't know. I've been where are you from in Honduras?
La Ceiba.
I've been to Tegucigalpa, Acaliapa, places like that. I've been to the
San Pedro Sula.
know. Trying to think of the bay, the beautiful bay.
Roatan.
Yeah.
We're very proud of Roatan.
And I ran out of gas in a helicopter in Honduras.
Oh my gosh.
And we went to Ruins of Copan. You know where that is?
Yes.
So, flying from the Ruins of Copan to Singapore. Where are we going here?
Oh no! Oh my gosh! This whole
Well, thank you very much. I just came from Capitol Hill and was invited to say a few words about the topic that you are on today. I was speaking in Bismarck, North Dakota on Monday at the Energy Expo that I organized. This is the 5th year that I've done an Energy Expo where you bring all forms of energy together and talk about everything. But we're also, I think, going to move towards natural gas for heavier and larger vehicles. We can make a decision about our destiny. And energy is critical to our future. There are a lot of things important to our future, but this room wouldn't exist as it is without energy. This discussion is front and center of what our country needs to address. And so I appreciate very much the invitation to come and say hello. Thank you very much. Congressman at the time that was during the conflict war. Yeah, oh yeah.
Hey, Cindy, have a good one. All right, thanks a lot. Good to see you. Always a pleasure.
Wanted to see if they could pencil in some time for maybe 5:20 around there.
Yeah, well, except that I've got to go. Let's see.
At the Fox News at 5:50, I think.
Yeah. And I also have to do an interview with Prairie Public.
Yep. And a scheduling meeting.
Right. Hi, Denise. It's Byron returning your call. Yeah, no, I'm happy to do it. Let me ask you, the only shot we've got at getting this is to, we've got to get a lot of co-sponsorships here, and I think we have 4 Republicans at this point. Senator Grassley joined today. Do you have some others that you're working on? All right, we'll keep in touch. Thanks a lot. Yeah, doing a short interview, or excuse me, when am I doing the Fox interview?
That's at 5:50 at the restaurant.
Hello. Hi, Sylvia. Yeah, hi, Harry. Yeah. I'll come over and go through it with you. Yeah, I will. Okay. Thanks, Harry.
Cheat him over that way.
Yeah.
There we go. Great.
Looking at me. Good. Good.
Just let me know, Dave.
Yep. That's perfect, right? Yeah.
Is that going to be a problem?
No.
Nope,
Okay.
no,
Not
this is,
in.
I think,
All right.
Lint.
So this is about the allocation of water that's set here. So what are they doing now in the Omaha district?
Well, they're doing this.
We have something called the walk. And literally, if someone's trying to connect with him, they'll say to me, can I walk with him from the office to the meeting in the Capitol at 2:30? And I'll say, okay. Then someone else will come to me and say, I also need him to see him. It's very timely. It's about an amendment that's coming up. And so I'll say, okay, he's coming back from this hearing and he's walking from the hearing to the Capitol at this time. And if you stand outside this door, you should catch him then.
So, Senator, between this and I think you're doing a floor speech, if you want to give WDAZ a call, I passed on your statement. They were calling about the Grand Forks Airport Terminal. So.
Yeah, I can. Let me turn the volume up. How are you? The moderator?
I think it's Neil Cavuto.
Neil? The Golden Gophers, and they just have not been able to put together a good team.
Not since Lou Holtz left.
No. And then my daughter is at UNC Chapel Hill, and so they thought, well, this year they might have a shot, and then they had all those players that are now ineligible. Did he die today?
No, he died not long ago. You're right, back September 8th, that Tuesday. So that's number 4.
Right. Well, listen, I heard your intro. What was all that about, that intro? I thought it was witchcraft. Okay. It was clever anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, it's good to
Nice-
see you.
nice seeing you, Senator.
Hope your team wins tonight.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Okay.
that.
People say to me that they say thank you, and I say, no, I should say thank you. I mean, this has been a great privilege and a gift to me, given me by the people of North Dakota. So I don't think I've ever taken this for granted. I mean, I've always thought this was a great privilege, and I still, on my wall, I've got my lineage. I've got where I came from, and I never forget that. I love to go back to my little hometown. And you know, I've always recognized as well that you've got to have passion in your heart about the things you believe in and do what you believe is right. I mean, I've had very difficult votes from time to time that have, you know, the example, changing the Constitution to prohibit desecrating the American flag. I love the American flag, but I would never change the Constitution with a flag burning amendment. And I know people get very upset because I wouldn't vote for that. I just, you know, I think the Constitution has been amended only 17 times in 200 years. And we've got people that think it's a rough draft. Every urge they get, they want to amend the Constitution. I just can't do it, no matter what people think. I've got, you know, and so I've done what I've tried to do, and then be passionate to say to people, here's how I felt about it. And I know, you know, you get, this desk gets lots of things, and I have always told the story about the one little letter I got. I got a packet of 20 letters from, I think it was Carrington, North Dakota. A teacher said, our project is to write to our senator, in a little class project. And so I got 20 letters from like a 4th grade class. And a little girl wrote, and she said, Dear Senator Dorgan, I know who you are. I see you on television sometimes. My dad watches you on television too. God, does he get mad? And I thought to myself, that is such a great reminder that, you know, you've got a whole constituency of people that feel very differently, have great passions of their own. And, you know, my opportunity is to be here and do the best I can, use the best judgment I can use. But the final point is that this has been a great gift given me by the people of North Dakota. And this tent of our democracy and government doesn't rest on a center pole called Byron Dorgan. There are a lot of good people, and will be a lot of good people in the future, who assume the mantle of responsibility for elected office, and this gives me the opportunity to move off to another chapter of my life.
And for those of you that think, and there are some in this state that think, that politics is no longer an honorable profession for a young man, I want to try and explain as best and as precisely as I can why I feel it's necessary to run for Congress this year. I'm running for Congress because as one American citizen, I don't approve of the conduct of Congress and the administration in Washington, and I intend to do all I can to see that we change it.
Funding for the production of Byron Dorgan in the halls of Congress is provided by a grant from Gate City Bank, offering a full range of financial products and services available at any of Gate City's 32 offices across the region. North Dakota Farmers Union, Lignite Energy Council, the Dakota Institute of the Lewis and Clark Fort Mandan Foundation, David and Ruth Borlaug, Hal and Kathy Gershman Family Foundation, Dr. Gerald H. Grunwald, Carol Jean Larson, and the members of Prairie Public.